Hi everyone. So as you know, Magnus Carlsen is the world chess champion, and recently he faced Alireza Firouzja in the Bantam Blitz Cup, and Alireza is one of the upcoming young talents, and Magnus Carlsen himself mentioned that this was one of the toughest challenges he's ever faced, and he actually went on to lose the cup to Firouzja, but this was one of the games that he actually won, and we'll have a look at it. So e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, a6, and bishop a4. So this is the open Spanish, and this is a very strategical opening where both sides gradually try to improve their pieces to the maximum. And after knight f6, d3, uh, b5, and bishop b3. So as you can see, black has expanded on the queen side, in turn pushing white's bishop back. But white can later on play a4 and probe at these weaknesses. And here black plays bishop c5, which is an aggressive option, and after c3, d6, and bishop g5, pinning the knight on f6. White is trying to delay castling a little bit, and after h6, bishop h4, and bishop b6. So black preempts the move d4 again for white, and now knight d2. So white's minor pieces are developed now, and after rook b8, he plays knight f1. So his idea is to play the knight to e3 and go for these weakened light squares, and that's why Firouzja plays knight e7 to prepare already for the knight coming to e3. But he, I think, underestimated White's chances here after bishop f6, gf6. Now, if black would manage to play f5, then this would be not a problem at all. But here knight h4, a very good move by Carlsen, stops this move, and suddenly it's not so crystal clear how black should proceed. He tries to play bishop e6, which is hoping for something like takes, and if queen h5, then king d7. And the king is actually quite safe here. It's not so easy to figure out how white is going to break through. But Carlsen instead could have played the move knight e3 here, his plan all along. This now white doesn't have the option of capturing here because suddenly the f5 square is very weak. Now white can think about playing queen h5 or queen f3 and then placing one of his knights to f4, f5, and it's not so clear how black is going to handle this. However, this was a rapid play game, and Carlsen played queen h5, which is also optically does not look bad at all. And after king d7, the bishop was under attack because the pawn is pinned, and black doesn't really want to capture and give away the f5 square to white, so he plays king d7 and now knight e3. So after queen g8, uh, black has kind of come back into the game because he's threatening to exchange queens. And after g3, queen g5, black forces white's queen to retreat. White, of course, doesn't want to exchange queens here because black's king is in the center and black has the two bishops right now, so he would either like to keep the queens on board. And after a5, white plays knight f3, and he repeats moves once before actually playing the break in the center with d4. So white has sacrificed a pawn here, and after bishop d4, black has won a pawn. But it's not so clear because after knight f3, um, black's pieces are a bit tied up. For example, the queen has to go to c5 now, and it is tied to the defense of the bishop. This bishop is solid on e6, but it can really be stagnant because it cannot really capture here, not this way, of course. It cannot really capture here, it cannot move anywhere here. So it's basically just a big, huge pawn sitting on e6. And this knight is also having a defensive job, of course, covering these two squares. So it's not so clear for black how he's going to make any uh, attacking moves in this game. And all he has to do is focus on defense, and which is not so easy to do when you're playing a long game and your opponent is continuously trying to win. And especially in shorter time control, it's not so easy. And here Carlsen just castles, and now you can see the difference between the kings. Black's king is actually very weak in the center of the board, and white's king is very safe. It's hard to imagine black coming with some sort of attack, but it can pretty much be possible that after rook d1, then black's king is a bit shaky. So black here correctly, I think, captures the knight on e3, which is a very strong piece, and Anyway, this bishop does not really have any squares. To remove this, the queen has to actually first go back, and then the bishop has to go back, and this is a long process. And anyway, this knight is a very strong knight, so taking makes sense. And now white also has to spoil his pawn structure to prevent the exchange of queens. But this does give his knight an excellent square on d4, and which he will actually use pretty soon. Now, a4 is tempting white to just capture on e6, but white first of all gains a tempo with rook c1. Black plays queen b4, and now white takes, pawn takes, and knight d4. So this knight has kind of reached its optimal square, and now the weakness in black's camp is quite visible, the pawn on e6. It's not easy to protect it all because there is no light square bishop. The queen cannot really come to the defense of the e6 pawn in a logical way. There is no way for the queen to reroute itself. The rooks are completely helpless, and the only defense black can think of is e5, but even that is not possible. So something like queen g4 is a serious threat here, and black plays c5. That's why immediately to displace this knight. But white has this intermediate move a3, queen a5, and now white realizes that it's time to strike, and he plays rook takes f6. So white has already realized that the knight is a small price to pay for an attack on the black king, and you can see while black's king is getting checkmated, both his rooks are just looking at blank spaces, and his queen is also completely out of play. And after black takes the knight, just queen g4, and as we discussed, there is absolutely no defense to taking on e6, and considering the weak king on d7, this is absolutely deadly. So black tries to come up with some sort of counterplay, but it's definitely not enough. Just queen takes e6, king e8, and the knight is pinned. The rooks are completely passive, and now white plays the killer move rook c7, and queen e7 checkmate is threatened, and queen d7 checkmate is threatened. It's too much for anybody to handle. Black gives a check, but it doesn't really mean much. King g2. Now if black were to check here, then just the rook comes back. There are no more checks, and queen d7 and queen e7 checkmate are threatened. So black just plays rook h7 as a final ditch attempt, but of course queen d7 is actually checkmate. So Carlsen actually won this game pretty easily, it looks as if, but it wasn't so easy after all to figure out all these intermediate moves with, first of all, to spoil your pawn structure with f takes e3 to allow black to do this, then come up with rook c1 and a3 as intermediate moves, and then finally sacrificing the knight with rook takes f6, and this shows the class of the world champion for sure. And but Alireza of course came back in the remaining games, but this was a masterpiece from Carlsen. So if you like the game, do like and subscribe and share it with your friends, and do check out other content on the channel.